So I got out to day 8 of the Carolina Panthers training camp. Another very interesting day, but today was very different. I want to start by saying that because yesterday I thought the offense showed a lot of flashes. They were clicking, they were consistent on offense. Bryce Young did not have a lot of balls hit the ground, did not really quote unquote miss on a lot of passes. But today the defense showed out. And I think that as we saw the intensity ramped up through the one-on-ones, through practice periods, in pads, guys really hitting, being physical, using that to their advantage on defense, I think they got the best of the offense. Now, like I said, and I said this in the last video, I don't want to use one practice or one play or one set of plays, one drive to shift either way. I'm not going to say because the defense won the day that the defense is going to have to carry the team, that they're significantly better. I think you want a team who can be balanced and who can win a day and then the offense go win another day. You want that back and forth swing because I think if the offense consistently goes out and just dominates this defense with a rookie quarterback, a guy who, despite being a number 1 overall pick, is still trying to catch on to things, still trying to prove himself in the league because it hasn't done anything yet. Understanding he's a very good player, but still has a ways to go to become that elite quarterback in which you drafted him to be. Now, getting into some of my notes for the day, had some interesting ones and some guys that we talked about yesterday, some interesting names that we did not talk about yesterday. And I'm going to start off with Shi Smith, a guy that I did not talk about yesterday, but had a big-time catch on one-on-ones and also had a couple touchdowns, just doing some interesting things. And when I saw a couple of those touchdown passes, I saw some big-time plays. I was like, who is that? And then it was Shi Smith. So did not really expect that. Now, I know Shi Smith had a little over 200 yards last year as a receiver, but I'm interested to see what his role on the team this year is because we look at receiver, I would say around the area of 5, 6, 7. Laviska Shenault, Damiere Byrd, those types of guys in that range. And I think the biggest thing is even Marquez Stevenson, we're going to question and say, okay, we know kind of who those top 4 to 5 guys are, but when we look at the guys in this range, you have to add some special teams value. And I think Shi Smith does add special teams value. But talking about another guy who I just named but did not talk about yesterday, and I really wanted to get to him yesterday. I do want to note that because it's important going into the day. Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd is a guy who's been on a couple teams, a speedster, but also showing the ability to go get the football today. And some of the catches that I saw, he was another one. Along with Shi Smith, I think I would say going back and forth between those guys, I saw big-time plays. Now, like I said, not really a great offensive day. So it's not like we dominated the whole practice. But I think that these guys did enough to the fact that they were noteworthy. And some of the other things I had down, had a touchdown yesterday, which I did not talk about, like I said, and flashed today on one-on-ones, had a touchdown in the red zone from Andy Dalton. So showing some good things. Now, 2 players, and I say veterans in this room, 2 guys that Bryce Young will lean on, that other teams have leaned on, and you kind of know where I'm going when I say that. Adam Thielen, Hayden Hurst. Touchdowns in team, flashing in one-on-ones, big-time things. Hayden Hurst really showed me a lot today. What he can be and what he truly is. Came out of South Carolina, played with Cincinnati, played with Joe Burrow, some other quarterbacks. But now we're coming into this team now, and he just looks like he's in great shape, can go get the football, and had a big-time play with yards after the catch. That was one thing that I noted, and I was like, I don't remember Hayden Hurst being this fast. Now, understanding kind of his value, kind of his draft profile, he was one of the more athletic tight ends, but seeing it, I mean, he looked like a tank, especially in a red zone when he gets the ball and when he gets going downhill. Not a lot of people are going to want to tackle that. So one thing I had to know, and really because he's a veteran, because Adam Thielen's a veteran, and these guys are still being consistent even though they're older players in the room. So I think we have to talk about that and thinking that, okay, Jonathan Mingo is nice. Terrace Marshall Jr. has been showing big-time playability. But when we need it, when we got to get that first down, when we need a consistent dump pass, Hayden Hurst going to be there, going to get some yards after the catch. Adam Thielen can still separate at this day and age. Yes, he can. Although he's never been a burner, he can still separate. Now, adding into one thing, I will say defense has been a consistent theme, though. I'll talk about these 2 days in which I've been at the Carolina Panthers training camp, and I think defense was solid on Friday, but today, and this is what I've been saying, it was a level above. It was a step up from what we saw on Friday. It was big-time plays, and like I said, as a defense, a lot of the things, especially with the rules now, the pass interferences, all of these calls, holding calls don't really get called, offensive pass interference. And they get called defensive pass interference all day, but when it's offensive pass interference, now a ref is looking around, nobody knows nothing. But today, they used their physicality to their advantage, got a bit more physical. We saw a couple hits, pads were clacking today, and I think that leads to some of that. Because they're now in that comfort zone. As a defender, you have to be more physical than the offensive person. And I think now being able to do that a little bit more, understanding it's still practice, but I think that gave them the edge over this team. And also played a lot of man coverage. One thing I will note, now, Bryce Young. You're probably wondering, and by now you've probably read some things, that this was one of Bryce Young's poorer practices. Now, like I said, it's training camp. We haven't seen anything real yet. We're not swinging one way. I'm not out on Bryce. I'm not saying he's too small because he missed the throw across the middle, but I do want to note what happened today and talk about that. Now, what I have on my notes, missed Hayden Hurst high. Miss Shi Smith high, and these are red zone plays, and basically had a lot of throwaways, particularly against man coverage. And that's why I brought up the fact that they played a lot of man coverage, because it worked. Jeremy Chin right in that nickel, had Dante Jackson, had JC, Eric Rowe, Xavier Woods. Those guys were playing some good defense. Also, Shaq Thompson and Frankie in the middle. So two guys we got to look at. Now, one thing I will say, and one thing about a very interesting receiver, which a lot of people have questions about, Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo had a drop pass on a dime from Bryce. So we talk about Bryce having a poor day, and I just noted a couple of the throws that he missed and had a lot of throwaways because nothing was there. Now, some of this has to be on the receivers as well, as far as why haven't we been clicking today? And I think that, one, not having great separation. There were some throws that Bryce could have fit, but we just talked about this being a calculated risk taker. Then when he throws a pick, you say, why are you forcing that there? So let's get out of that situation before we talk about that. Now, I would say the other thing was a couple of drops. And talking about drops, not only was it Jonathan Mingo, Chuba Hubbard had a couple of drops, but I'm not, because it's interesting when talking about Chuba Hubbard, because he had a drop in the red zone, and then right next to that, the next note that I had on my list, he's flashing despite that. Had a touchdown run, had a touchdown catch, did some great things, had other touchdowns in the receiving game, although he dropped a couple passes, although he ran a touchdown. So I think it's being consistent, trying to stack those good plays and make sure the bad plays are rare and few in between, because they're trying to use him more in the pass game. And from what I saw, he's effective in the pass game as far as getting open, running the right route. I think he's effective in that aspect. And you probably say, okay, anybody can do that. That's not exactly true. And then the other thing is, we knew I think the draft profile from what we've seen so far, I think the biggest thing is Chuba Hubbard's hands are suspect. And I think that right now they're still suspect. But, however, on a good note, he still caught some touchdowns. And I think that, like I said, has to stack it. If you can do it, continue to do it. So you have to think that it's not a skill thing. We've seen him do the right thing. We've seen him do it consistently and good at times. So it has to be a mind thing now. Understanding that, those blunders, got to get out of that. Keep catching the football. Keep catching the football. Now, the last note I have is Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall Jr., and I talked about it. Along with, I think, Jonathan Mingo, people have a lot of expectations for him because he's that second-round pick and a high second-round pick. But I'm telling you, DJ Chark's making plays. Didn't have a big time day today, but DJ Chark's making plays. Adam Thielen's making plays. I talked about some other guys, Jameer Byrd, Shi Smith of the world. But I'm telling you, Terrace Marshall Jr. is making plays, and it's not the typical curl route. It's not the typical 5-yard stop. It's different things. It's not the typical dig. It's that one-on-one. It's that 50-50. It doesn't look like it can fully go your way. Go get it. Now, today, the catch that I'm talking about in particular, it was a diving catch across the middle, and it looked like he actually had a dig or a crosser across the field, caught it on the opposite side of the field. Bryce Young, great pass, dived out to get it. So, some good things that we saw today, but like I said, more on the defensive side. You got the Frankie Louvu's popping up. And before we get out of here, one guy I would like to talk about on the defense, and I'm pulling them up right now, but this was a very interesting guy on the defense right here, and that's Mark Milton. had some pass breakups, and I think it was noteworthy because I actually didn't write it down, but I kept looking at him on the roster. And I said, okay, who's 37? Yesterday, the guy was Herb Miller. Today, the guy was Mark Milton. So some of the things we're looking at with this secondary. Also, Josh Thomas had a pick. I forgot who the quarterback was in that situation. But like I said, overall, don't want to take it too far. I think that Ejiro Evero, understanding what he wants to do, and I really wish that we could truly get a look at run defense or run offense in these periods, but understanding with injuries how the NFL is today, and really in the game, who's to say, although this was a heavy run team in the second half of the season, that I would say, I don't know what the true identity will be this year. Now, you brought in Thomas Brown, and he's worked with a team who's had a run game, especially with that wide zone system, but now I don't know what to fully expect. I'm going to say that I don't know what to fully expect. Now, one thing I will say when talking about this offense in particular, you have to kind of guess, go out on a limb and say that they're going to run the ball because you have Bryce Young, because you have these receivers, and they're good receivers. Like I said, they're not elite receivers. They're not great receivers, but it's a good complementary group. And also, I think you do have a good offensive line. Now, that's to say these guys can pass block. When we talk about offensive lines, usually we can pass block, and we can't block a soul in the run game, or we can't block a soul in the passing game, but we can maul you to death. However, I think this is a balanced offensive line when I look across the room. So those are my notes for today. Like I said, intensity was raised, had some big time things. Let me know what you think about these observations. What do you think about these players in particular? And also, last thing I want to get to, Giovanni Ricci. I hope and pray that I'm pronouncing that right. But 45 is a guy that I saw flash. And I think that interesting thing that I want to say before we get out of here, because he could be a wing, he can be a fullback, and he can be a tight end. We saw him catching some passes, saw him doing some different things, lined up, motioning. I think along with Hayden Hurst, an interesting guy to keep your eyes on. Now, we know about Ian Thomas, we know about Tommy Trimble, but I think that Giovanni Ricci is one guy to keep your eye on. And I'm going to leave you with that note because that's the type of thing we do. Very interesting players, and I want to leave you with a cliffhanger. Let me know what you think about Giovanni Ricci. If you were out there, did you see him? Is he one of the players your eyes on? Did not see a lot of my guy, personally, as far as I'm being there. Iku Luota, did not see a lot of him today. But overall, that's going to do it for today. Those are my observations. And like I said, I want to know what you think in the comments so we can truly talk about it. We can go all day and talk about this in the comments. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And now, we out.